There are over 2 billion young people in our world today, and what's so exciting is that each one of them is inherently powerful and capable of incredible humanity. They're the ones that are teaching us. They're inspiring us, and they're leading the way forward.
In a 90-minute teleconference, students from Southeast High in Oklahoma City hooked up with a group of kids from Stuyvesant High School in New York.
That's what this group does. It's called the Global Nomads
video conference with students in Qatar this morning, where they discussed climate change and how it might affect the future.
Fostering communication and understanding among the world's youth is the goal of the NGO Global Nomads. The organization recently
Basically, our mission is to foster dialogue and understanding amongst the world's youth. And so what we do is we connect young people from all over the world to learn about each other's cultures and lives.
So with Rwanda, one of the things that we did talk about was the genocide. And that was very powerful for everyone who was involved. We made this connection from this church to the school in Kansas, and I will just never forget these young Rwandans sharing, being so vulnerable.
In only this district, Nyamata, and there are many of them. In this church only there are 10,000 of people who are killed in here.
Sharing what it was like to live through that genocide with the kids in Kansas. And it really didn't matter that these kids were 3,000 miles away, that they were on video. These Rwandese were so authentic and so sincere with their storytelling. It impacted everyone because that, they hadn't felt like they had been heard, that the world had just carried on and that this genocide had happened and nobody really cared. And I think for them to be able to talk to other young people their same age and to just be heard and then to have a conversation around that, I know it was incredibly meaningful for them.
Mom, I really see how bad people got it. She always used to tell me it's people who will kill to be in my shoes, but I never really believed it. I just played it off, but now I see it's the truth.
We live at this extraordinary time in history that if we want to, if we really, really want to, we can leverage technology and make what we did between kids in Rwanda and kids in Kansas the norm. That we could just make it the norm for schools everywhere in the world.
The baseline for Global Nomads Group is direct human communication. The only way to really learn about your world is to go there and talk to the people who are living those big human events. We fortunately had the UN connections who could point us in the right direction in terms of who are the various experts that we could bring into one of our programs, who are the facilitating NGOs that were running the camp. It was completely uncovered. Nobody really wanted to go there because it was so difficult. Especially in Darfur, I think a lot of people were very unwilling to tell their story. Either it was such an emotionally charged story, or they were extraordinarily shy in terms of just getting on camera. For me, what was so important was that we were able to tell that story, to share this experience in the best way we knew how to do. And I think perhaps more now than in 2004, even those remote or obscure stories will resonate with somebody somewhere.
So in 2007, we went to northern Uganda and did a live broadcast, or a series of live broadcasts from northern Uganda. It just so happened that in 2006, a ceasefire was signed between the rebels and the government. So we had this window of opportunity to go in there and see how people were living. When most adults had never heard about this conflict, we were telling kids directly in the classroom what was going on in the world and allowing them to actually learn on their own. We're shining a spotlight on something that wasn't really being seen in the media at all.
I was abducted in 1994 when I was 11 years old. This student you are seeing behind me, these are all abducted people, but they are still alive.
It made me feel like we were actually making a difference. Starting GNG was one of the best decisions of my life.
Iraq program that we did in 2003, right before the war broke out, was called Project Voice, and it was to give young Iraqis a voice to what was going on in their country and how they felt about what was happening in the international arena. There was a lot of diplomatic maneuvering. We used all the contacts that we had to get ourselves into Baghdad and to create a live broadcast.
A group called Global Nomads set up a link between American teenagers and Iraqi teenagers, and they got to talk about a lot of things, including the possibility of a coming war.
It was really intense, I think, for everyone involved, and then the war broke out, and that was really challenging. And the kids in the US, we later found this out, of course, were very anxious about friends that they had just met in Iraq over this camera because there was a connection between them.
It would be much easier to be friends if we could understand each other's viewpoints for life, and in that way I guess that we can contribute to the betterment of the world. I don't have a bomb in my pocket right now. And you don't look like cowboys who like to fire. I don't think so.
What came out of that program was truly what G&G stands for. By using technology as a tool to bring young people together and create dialogue could help be a part of that change. It really showed G&G at its best.
20 years ago, when Global Nomads Group started, we had to create the conditions that allowed young people to connect across difference and distance. We had to bring satellite equipment into remote areas so that young people could connect no matter where they lived. In our world today, young people's access to and comfort with technology is extraordinary. So now our work is about making those connections meaningful. We want to give them opportunities and the skills to engage with difference and to harness their voice and really experience deep empathy. G&G's work is anchored by our belief in and our real respect for young people that we work with. We know that if we give them the right opportunities and supports, they will far exceed anything we can dream of today. Ultimately, G&G's vision is that they will become the generation that will lead us forward into a more just world and one that preserves the human dignity of each and every person in it.